When I checked into my Airbnb, the owner gave me a horrifying list of rules. I thought I found the perfect house. Our family was not very wealthy, so when I saw a two-story mansion being listed for just $50 a night, I knew I had to take it. What could possibly go wrong? I thought it was a little strange that they were charging so little money for such a nice house, but other than the price and slightly sketchy location of it, everything looked fine. I just never could have guessed that this Airbnb would turn into my worst nightmare. A couple of days after booking the house, I got a call from the owner. They said that they were excited for our family to stay at their home, and then told me a little more about the house. It was built in 1915 during World War I. The original owner wanted to stay away from the war, so they built the house hours away from any city or town. She then proceeded to ask me some basic questions about me and my family. All pretty basic stuff. However, it was the last question she asked that sent a chill down my spine. If you or anyone in your family were in a life-threatening situation, do you think any of you would choose to fight back? I kind of paused at that one. The owner asked the question in such a serious tone. I was lost in my head for a moment before she brought me back to the call with a hello? Nudge. I'm not sure, but I don't think my daughter would fight back. But of course I would do anything to protect her. She means everything to me. I wasn't so sure about my response, but I really didn't think it mattered that much. The last thing she said to me, and what felt like the most important thing out of that entire conversation, was that I needed to make sure to read the welcome home paper that was sitting on the kitchen counter when we got there. Fast forward 5 days later, it was finally time for our vacation. We had to leave very early in the morning, not just because we wanted to make the most of our time there, but also because the house was a 12-hour drive away. As we got onto the road, I started thinking about the location of the house a lot more. It made me uneasy thinking about how far away it was from anyone. My uneasiness increased even more when we arrived at the house. It was a large, dark building, and it looked much different than the pictures on the Airbnb website. The house stretched far back and was surrounded by nothing but forest and trees. It was raining heavily, so I quickly pulled into the driveway and stepped out of the car. As we approached the front door, more uneasiness came over me. It was like something was wrong, but I just couldn't figure out what exactly. The inside of the house was just like the outside. There was a dark mood that took over the whole house, and once again it looked completely different than the pictures showed. Filled with anger, I pulled out my phone to call the owner to complain, but I had no service. I figured the rain must have knocked it out. I considered just driving back, but we had come this far, and we paid money for this house, so we may as well make ourselves at home. My kids were desperate to explore the house, but I remembered what the owner said about the paper on the kitchen counter, so I quickly went over and grabbed it. Essential rules for resident safety on the premises. These rules must be followed under any circumstances. These rules are only for the residents of this home. Failure to follow these rules will result in injury or loss of life. Do not exit the house if it is past 12 a.m. No matter what you see or hear, you must not leave the house. The temperature on the thermostat must stay set to 64 degrees. It cannot be any higher or any lower. If you get a call on the house phone in the kitchen, pick it up. If it is the owner of the Airbnb that you spoke to previously, continue talking. Otherwise, hang up quickly. If someone starts knocking on the front door, hide in the bathroom and lock the door until the knocking stops. Do not open the door under any circumstances. If you see a dark figure outside the front window, close your eyes immediately and turn around a corner. You may see or hear other extremely disturbing things during your stay, but you cannot interfere with them. You can stop following these rules after the clock hits 6 a.m., but must begin following them after the sun goes down. Good luck. At first I laughed. This was definitely a good way to set the mood in a house like this. I was about to throw away the sheet when suddenly I heard a knock at the front door. A chill immediately shot down my spine. This had to just be a coincidence, right? It was probably just the owner coming to check on us. I started walking to the front door to answer it when suddenly I heard a scream that I'll never forget. "Mommy!" My daughter screamed as the sound of broken glass erupted throughout the entire house. I turned around to see my daughter being pulled out through the living room window by some sort of horrifying, alien-like creature. It had dark red skin and was covered in large razor-sharp points. I sprinted over to her and tried to grab onto her and pull her back in. "Just hold on, I got you, Stacy," I shouted. I continued to pull harder and harder, but so did the creature. I thought I was about to finally have her when suddenly her body split in half, and the front half came flying into me, covering me in blood and flesh. The creature pulled the top half of her body out through the window and began feasting on what was left of it. Immediately I screamed, a scream that felt like it lasted for hours. It was impossible to comprehend what I had just witnessed. I quickly turned around and puked violently into the trash can. Just when I finished throwing up into the bin, everything started to hit me all at once. This was what the owner meant when she asked me that question during the phone call. I looked back to see that the creature was gone, and all that was left was my daughter's head. I had to get out there. Just then, my eyes fell on the cursed rule sheet again, and my eyes fell onto the very first rule. Do not exit the house if it is past 12 a.m. My eyes glanced off the sheet and to the clock on the wall. It was 12:05 a.m. I fought an internal battle with myself, overwhelmed with grief and emotion. The rational part of me told me that it was all just a dream. The instinctual and primitive part of me told me that something was seriously wrong here, and I had to follow the rules for my own safety. The distinct ring of the kitchen house phone interrupted my conflicting thoughts. I picked the phone up. "Hi, this is Jessica, the owner of the Airbnb. I just wanted to call and see how things were going so far." I struggled to let a sound out. "Well, anyways, I hope you enjoy your stay, and remember, feel free to call if you have any questions or concerns. Bye," Jessica said as the call ended. I felt paralyzed. I still couldn't process anything that had just happened to me. It was like my world had just ended. However, deep down I knew that I had to get out of here. All I needed to do was survive until 6 a.m. I sat down for a moment and thought about the best way to go about doing so, and I ended up deciding on just sleeping through everything, and that if it was all just a dream, I would wake up back at home in my own bed. I laid down on the couch and closed my eyes to sleep. But that didn't last long. After what felt like hours of struggling to fall asleep, I sat up. It was freezing, so I got up and walked over to the thermostat. 64 degrees, I thought to myself. That's way too cold. I moved my hands to the knob and changed it to 71. As the number on the screen changed, I remembered about the rule sheet and realized what I had just done. That was when it happened. The light suddenly shut off, and I began to hear the same growls that had come from the creature that ate my daughter. It was coming for me. I grabbed my phone and turned the flashlight on and began running. The house was massive and my veins were full of adrenaline. As I passed by the downstairs master bedroom, I saw something. There were bodies scattered throughout the room. Previous guests from past days. They were mutilated and covered in blood. My heart began to beat faster and faster. I had to get out of here. I continued to run as fast as I could up the stairs to the second floor. However, the screams of the creature continued to get louder. I ran down the upstairs hallway and into the bathroom and shut the door. I switched my flashlight off and sat completely still. Just as I was starting to think it was giving up on finding me, I heard the footsteps get closer, until eventually they reached the bathroom door. Through the darkness, I was barely able to make out a glint of a dark red ooze coming from under the door. It had found me. A chilling realization gripped over me. I was going to die tonight. But just as the door was about to give way, a resonant chime echoed from the clock downstairs. It was 6 a.m.